You'll be hearing from a number of people who were tragically affected by these fires, and I am one of them.
The FireAid concert, held Thursday to raise money for California fire victims, was a star-studded event. Several of the celebrities who took to the stage shared personal stories of how they were impacted by the destructive wildfires. Billy Crystal reflected on learning that his home burned down.
When we were finally able to get back to our house in the Palisades, which we had lived in for 46 years, like thousands of you, our house now looked like this. I stepped onto the grounds and I fell to my knees and I wailed. I had not cried like that since I was 15 years old, and I was told that my father had just died. I remember looking in the mirror back then with my whole life ahead of me thinking, what is my life going to be like without him? Now, folks, I'm 76 years old, without a mirror, and a lot less life to ponder, thinking, what is my life going to be like without our home? And then I heard screams from my daughters, Dad, 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 Dad. And my girls, Jenny and Lindsay, brought over this rock from a burnt-out garden. Years ago, I bought these rocks with one word engraved in them. I placed them around our gardens. They were welcome, patience, dream, and the one I held in my hands, laughter. I learned about the power of laughter back in 1963 in our shiver house, sitting alone, sad little guy. I heard big laughs coming from the family in our modest living room, and I came down the hall to see my dear Uncle Bern in the midst of his sorrow, telling stories and doing magic tricks and making the entire family laugh, and it changed my life. I knew at that moment, even in your worst pain, folks, it's okay and it's important to laugh. And I dedicated my life then, and my career then has been able to do that throughout very difficult times, and I'm proud of that. But when I held that rock in my hands, this was the only thing that was left. I felt it was a message from that 15-year-old me saying, it's gonna be okay, and it will be okay.
At one point in his speech, Billy did just that, cracking a couple of jokes to help those affected laugh through the difficult experience.
These were the clothes I wore when I fled my house with my wife Janice, like so many of us did on January 7th. It was all I had, wore it for a week, plus an N95 mask. I looked like an evacuee or someone who had just robbed a 7-Eleven. But everybody's been so supportive. This young girl, she must have been 20, came up to me and said she understood my pain because she had lost TikTok for a day. Everybody has a thing.
Miles Teller also took the stage, first sharing his experience.
My wife and I, like so many others living in the Pacific Palisades, lost our home in the fires, and my heart breaks for everyone who's been affected across the city. Truly, my heart goes out to all you guys.
But then the actor introduced someone who had lost their home as well.
And tonight, I'm standing next to someone from the Palisades who has lost a lot, and he's here to share his story with us. And I actually just found out backstage that we lived on the same street. So this is my neighbor. Please meet Chad Comey.
I lived in the Palisades with my disabled parents. My dad is blind. My mom's in a wheelchair. I'm their caregiver. Our condo had been in the family since 1974 when my grandparents bought it. When it was time to evacuate, I grabbed my neighbor and we carried my mom down 5 flights of stairs. My dad was stubborn and stayed behind. I was super worried about him. I couldn't sleep that night. He couldn't get out because of the heat, and he had to spend the night in the underground garage. Thankfully, he survived. We didn't have insurance. We lost so much, but we didn't lose everything. We lost our photographs, but we didn't lose our family memories.
After he was done sharing his story, Miles had a surprise for him to replace something from his favorite band that he had lost in the fire.
I heard that you are a huge Green Day fan. Who's not? And one of the prized possessions that you lost in the fire was a drumstick that you caught at one of the concerts.
Yeah.
Well, Green Day's drummer, Trey Cool, heard about that, and you know what? He's got a little surprise for you. Where's he at? Hey!
Now, among the performers of the evening was Stevie Nicks. In between songs, she shared her experience having to evacuate and expressed her gratitude for first responders who worked to battle the fires.
I'm going to go a little bit rogue here and actually talk to you about what happened. I have something here that I have to read because it's important, but I want you to know, for the first time in my life, knowing that I was a full-on Pacific Palisadian woman with an old, beautiful, famous house that was almost taken from me as the fire came up the hill behind my house. And I was pretty sure as they whisked me away and evacuated me, my least favorite word now, to another safe place, that when I turned around and looked, my house would be up in flames. And due to the fact that my house was wood, because it was built in '38, it would have set the rest of the whole street on both sides on fire. So she stands strong, just like her mom. And in my opinion, she saved that whole street. And so when I look at her now, I have yet to go back inside. I've just walked around the house and seen it. And just to go like, you know what, there is a God. Sometimes when you think that everything is lost, you have to believe, even if you're not religious, you have to go, there is a God, and that God saved that house for me, because without her, I don't know what I would have done. So I wanted to share that story with you. And now, the reason it got saved is because it was a team from Santa Rosa, the Santa Rosa firefighters, that saved her. And they never gave up, I have to tell you, not just on my house, but on the whole side of the whole mountain canyon that was coming up towards us. And so I'd like to dedicate this next song to all of those firefighters, because until you really see it happen, you can't believe it. You just simply cannot believe the bravery of these men, Captain Dean especially. So I'd like to dedicate this song to them. It's called Landslide.
The morning after the concert, CBS Mornings anchor Gail King reported from the concert venue and was joined live by Melissa Rivers, who spoke about losing everything in the fires.
It is incredibly surreal.
Yes.
And it's one of those things that I still don't have my head around it. Mm-hmm. And what's happened for me is it's very interesting how it's working in my head.
How so?
Well, sadly, this is the third time something like this has happened to me in my life, where I've gone to sleep with my life one way and woken up with another. I had my dad, who died by suicide. I had my mom, which we all know, and now this. And what's the process is, this time I've kind of skipped grief and gone directly to anger.
What are you angry about specifically?
Everything.
Everything, yeah.
Everything. And it's not a specific anger, it's just this rage of what happened.
But you've lived in California practice since you were a little girl.
Yes.
So I would imagine this was not your first evacuation. So did you think this is the big one, or did you think we'll be back and we'll be fine?
And especially where I was in the Palisades, I thought I will be back. I mean, you really do not process, and we could see flames, mm-hmm. but you're like, oh, it's never going to get to us. Mm-hmm. So we're watching the news, and we are watching our neighbor's house burn mm-hmm. on our block. Mm-hmm. So it's very surreal, mm-hmm. and I think it's just starting to hit me that this really happened.
Your family has a motto
Yes.
from Winston Churchill. What is that motto?
And my dad actually brought it to our family, which is, and I know I'm screwing it up, but it's basically, when you find yourself in hell, keep going.
Keep going.
And that's how I've gotten through everything.
Yeah.